you're doing the talent a disservice by keeping them under contract and not allowing them to get better, to make more money, to get themselves over.
Right, so as Stevie makes his way to the whiteboard, I challenged him before we started this show to come up with a base roster for AEW Dynamite and AEW Collision. Now, this pre-proposes that we're going to have a bit of a roster split as well, which Stevie's also going to describe and how that's going to work. But Stevie, over to you at the whiteboard. Who have you picked and why?
Well, thank you very much, James. This should be very, very interesting and fun in the comments because everybody will have their opinion, and that's what we want. Comment below. I'm going to try to explain why I picked, and it is a roster split, and the reason is, before we even get started, I really initiated a roster split to make events like Forbidden Door more special, to where this would be the WrestleMania where everybody from Rampage, Collision, Dynamite, all the different shows, New Japan Wrestling, it would make the event even more special than it already is. And if talents are constantly wrestling each other across the board and 3 shows every week, Forbidden Door is not that special. It's not that much of a novelty event. So here we're talking about AEW Dynamite. And I did say previously, I wanted to make this more like a WWE type show, and AEW fans, according to James, are going to hate that. But we need characters that are larger than life. We need to get the ratings up. The middle of the week, 8 to 10, we really need to make an impression. And this doesn't mean these are the only people that are going to be on the show. How big is the roster once again, James? How many people?
I think for the men's, was it like 118?
Yeah.
I just counted.
I think, yeah, it was well over 100. I think you said 180.
No, 118. And then there was the
okay.
women. Yeah, with the women, it's 155. But the women's is going to be a different video.
A completely dedicated segment to the women, and they deserve it. And they definitely need, right off the bat, like Tony Storm and everybody else, needs more care creatively from the creative team. So let's start. We have Swerve as AEW champion up here. The champions, by the way, we're not going to talk about the amount of belts. Swerve as the AEW champion, my idea would be you work all 3 shows. You're the world champion, meaning that you will defend your title, you will appear, you'll do something, and that will make each show special. Every week, probably not. But when Swerve shows up as champion, he works more. And what I feel like the champion should make more, since you're working 3 times more. So there is some incentive to get the belt, to get the ball, and work 3 shows means you make more money as a talent. I have Edge, Adam Copeland here, because he's a legend. He can help a lot of the younger talent out. And also, name recognition, people are going to tune in to see him. Keith Lee, larger than life, had a great initial WWE run that kind of fizzled out. But I feel like Keith Lee, and even if you pair him with Shane Taylor and reunite them as a team, you have 2 monsters right there as a tag team. I think too, James, let me know your opinion. I think we should do a tag team dedicated segment in the future, just like the women, because they have a lot of tag teams and they can really do some cool stuff with that.
Straight away, I'm noticing you've picked 2 people injured.
I did. Because even the presence of Adam Copeland and Keith Lee on TV, vignettes, comeback story, road to recovery, why are we not like having him document this every week on TV? Why are you not maximizing?
They should have Creed. They should have Creed playing in the background as well, like the Triple H ones when he was coming back. But they were great.
They were great. Yeah, they were great. So if a talent is injured, use that. Even if you got to do the Saturday morning show and have some kind of package or have them cut a promo or even just kind of like do a FaceTime call with the commentators, you need to still have these guys on TV. So then we got Malachi Black. Definitely adds a character here, a darker character, and he can work. And he deserves that spotlight. A lot of these talents, too, they use them for like however many weeks, then they just kind of cool them off out of nowhere. We need to make it to where everybody has their own little, kind of like segment of being over and staying over, and creative needs to work with them. MJF will draw ratings, and interacting with Edge, interacting with Keith Lee, with Malachi Black, interacting with the WWE known guys will get him over even more. That's just my opinion. Tony Storm, we said we're going to dedicate a segment to women, but Tony Storm is the women's champion. She works all three shows and she's a character and she is over. And I believe she draws ratings. So right there. So any questions about the first? And none of these are in a particular order, James. It's not like this is the top tier, middle tier, lower tier. What are your thoughts?
Absolutely none for now. I want to hear the rest of them.
Okay. You're the boss. This is going to probably surprise you. Big Bill. Big Bill, former WWE talent. I would even go as far to bring Enzo in and make them an act again because people will interact with the opening promo. They have to, obviously kind of twist it around because they don't want to get sued. Neither do we, by the way, just putting it out there. But putting him there, he's larger than life. He's a big dude. Even on his own, he's going to draw some kind of interest. And then you kind of put him in the vein of interacting with these four or everybody else. But bringing Enzo in will get people talking, positive or negatively. And then you can put the act back together. Jack Perry. Jack Perry right now is over. I believe he's a good heel. He can interact. You can have him do stuff with Edge, Keith Lee, Black, him if he's a babyface, MJF, all that stuff. Even having, universes cross where Tony Storm interacts with Edge, interacts with Jack Perry, interacts with Malachi Black right there. Mercedes Moné. Now, some of these are more of a financial thing, James, because she's getting paid a ton of money. And right now, Dynamite is the most visible show, the highest rated show in the lineup. So we need to get a return on our investment. She just turned a heel. So she's a really strong heel that can once again interact with Tony Storm or bringing girls onto the show to work angles and storylines with her as Tony Storm does her thing. Now, I also want to say, I know Tony Storm has a group and there's a few talents that have their own stable. That includes the people in the group, just to let you know. So it's not just 15 people, 16 including Swerve. It's the people that are currently paired with them as well. Dustin Rhodes. Dustin has never gotten the push that he truly deserves in AEW. He's never gotten treated like a legend. He's never gotten treated like one of the most over characters in wrestling history. He can still go. And most importantly, with an MJF, and I would even put Malachi Black, Keith Lee, Jack Perry, Big Bill, and everybody else over here that are young people. That's a guy. These are all talents that can learn from Dustin. The Young Bucks are tag champs. They'll work all three shows, but I wanted to put them there for a particular reason, logistically, as far as management. I want you to guess what I think about that. No?
I know, that's fine.
Their management, they're the EVPs. I would assume you need an EVP or two to be on hand for every single TV. So they're on-air talent, but they're also backstage, they're agenting, they're on the headsets. So strictly more from a backstage thing, you need to have them there. And that's why Kenny Omega is not on Dynamite because he needs to be on Rampage. Just my thought. Jeff Jarrett, you just talked about Jeff Jarrett works backstage, books the live events. He's a great character on TV. He would make a great agent. He would also make a great booker if you wanted to separate the book between Dynamite, Rampage, and Collision. I don't think Tony Khan's going to ever give that up, but Jeff has an incredible mind. Also, Jeff can work with everybody too. Danhausen, we talked about it. You need to have fun. You need some comedy. You need to not be so serious for the entire 2 hours. Danhausen, and he gets hurt a lot. So he's a character that doesn't need to wrestle. So you just put him out there. He has a little spot, and it's not even a little spot. It's a very important spot because it breaks it up. And being a comedy act, multiple times in my career, sometimes a guy like that will get more over than everybody else because he stands out. So Hook, young guy, currently he's over, not as over as he was, and that's creative's fault. I would want him to work with all these people to learn and get even better. All right, I'm going to pair these two maybe together. I don't know. Lance Archer and Luchasaurus, way larger than life. You can see here with the size of everybody, this is the show for big men. This is the show for the most part for giants. Lance, Luchasaurus, whether they wrestle each other, he wrestles him, he wrestles him, he wrestles him, he wrestles him. Now, do you see the matchups now, the storylines, the things that could happen based on that? So that's my 15, 16 count and swerve. What do you think?
I was getting worried at the first bit because I was thinking you picked two people who are injured, but then it's grown into a decent mix of age, experience, youth, which is sort of what you want. But
And
you
size.
coming from ECW
And size, too.
and size especially. Now, coming from ECW, I'm sure a bit of Paul Heyman's booking prowess or theories rubbed off you at one point. What do you think of the idea that you should only have one legend on a roster? Because obviously he picked Terry Funk, who you worked with quite a few times.
Well, we didn't have any other legends on the roster, so we only really had available one legend every single week, and that was Terry. People that were potential legends or way over TV talents, they were passing through between WCW and WWE. So, and Terry was willing to work, and Terry believed in the company. Here, we have the excellent problem of having too many legends, too many people that are big, too many people that are over. But with this roster as a base, there's going to be more people than this that will kind of rotate in and out. But with this roster, then you got Swerve as champion. This dude can learn a whole lot from a lot of people on this roster, whether they have experience or not, the different styles, the different size. Swerve can now learn different styles outside of his own. So you have him as champion, you may as well surround him with an excellent supporting cast. And I believe right here, you have enough to at least gain interest for the first week to a month. And that's when you got to grab them. So any other questions about Dynamite?
Yeah, I've got one question. Where does Christian fit into all this? Do you split him away from Luchasaurus?
I do, because I want to repackage Luchasaurus because he's not a wrestling dinosaur anymore. You know what I mean? Either you unmask him, keep him with Christian, and that's why I put Adam Copeland on this, because the Rampage roster has Christian on it. So there's Christian. So
if we just go back to the Dynamite thing,
Sure.
one more thing this is my suggestion, is that I would split the Young Bucks away from Jack Perry, because I think visually their combined heat, because they're all heels and everything, but visually they're very similar looking and they always hang out together. And I think that they could draw better heat with Jack Perry, you know, like a Shawn Michaels and a Sid kind of thing, or Jack Perry and maybe Luchasaurus, for example. That Jack Perry always has a heater, someone bigger than him who he can hide behind when the going gets too tough. But then if he hangs around with the Young Bucks, then there's no one bigger than anybody else there, and they've all got too similar of a way of drawing heat in that respect. Do you agree or disagree with my assessment?
I a little bit of both. I'm not trying to be middle of the road, but I had a thought too. Reuniting Luchasaurus and Jack Perry as heels and having Luchasaurus be his bodyguard, his backup once again in a different twist from their baby faces. But I would like to see Luchasaurus with the mask off. I said my main priority with putting the Young Bucks on this show was for the behind the scenes, to backstage their EVPs. We could interchange them with Kenny Omega. Would you think Kenny Omega would fit in better here?
Kenny Omega's another. Do you know?
Similar.
No, I think
Similar though.
Yeah,
But Kenny Omega
Yeah,
can get a great rub from all these legends and WWE talents. I just put Kenny on Rampage because he's an EVP and we need him backstage to offset so Khan can delegate a little bit to these guys. So it's strictly from a management or nothing to do creatively. But they can get heat. And I believe if you put Jack Perry in one, say hour one, and Young Bucks in hour two, and never have them in the same hour of Dynamite, you can definitely separate them. So it's just, this is a booking meeting, by the way. James, what we're having here is basically looking at our draft board, our booking, our creative, to see what we can do. This is not set in stone. This is a starting point. Like, we need to spend weeks on this kind of stuff as it kind of, injuries. Somebody's contract's up. Somebody's getting paid way too much money, so we need the user. There's all these different, these guys don't get along with these guys. We might have to put them on separate shows. That's the world we live in.
Well, here's something else. And we can't have Swerve Strickland because he's the world champion. He's the star of all the shows. But who is the star of Dynamite?
That could be the question that that could be the first angle. Who's the franchise?
Shane Douglas.
Well, you bring Shane Douglas in to present who the franchise of AEW is. Still a big fan of Shane's show. I did not replace Shane. Will you tell the people?
No, no, you did not replace Shane. I'd say MJF there, because also you've got to look at youth as well. You've got you've got Adam Copeland, you've got Jeff Jarrett. They're both in their 50s. Keith Lee looks like he's in his 50s. You definitely need to have more youth, and MJF is still in his 20s, and I think he can lead that show. I would suggest he would be, with your roster, he would be the lead star other than Swerve, or whoever the champion would be.
I agree with that, but I'll also challenge anybody else on the roster here, or any other show that comes on here, to usurp him, take his spot in a good, friendly, competitive way. MJF has that spot by default, but he didn't have that spot initially. He was just a loudmouth heel. He put himself in that spot. What I'm saying here too, by the way, you're talking about Jeff, you're talking about Edge and maybe Keith Lee to an extent. We need to maximize the remaining time they have in their career to help cement their legacy and help pass the torch to the next generation. So that's why I'm mixing it up like this. Even him injured could teach all these guys something. Dustin's even older, right? So Dustin can still go, and Dustin can teach these guys everything, hopefully, that they can carry on to be over like Dustin, like Edge, like, MJF is. This guy, they haven't even gotten the mileage out of Malachi Black. Also, just another thought. There's always a potential that these people are going back to WWE after their deal's up. So we really need to get their knowledge into the younger generation that he isn't going anywhere. All right, here is the AEW Rampage lineup. Once again, champions work every show. I didn't put Toni Storm in this, but it should have been her and Swerve up at the top. Okay, so let me repeat what I said. Rampage is your ECW TV show. Blood, guts, violence, adult storylines, cursing, all these different things. And I feel like the flagship, the franchise for that is going to be Jon Moxley. One of them, actually. Next, Darby Allin, for obvious reasons, right? Diving, doing stunts. Eddie Kingston, history of Moxley, also a brawler. Kenny Omega doesn't fit in there, but Kenny Omega had some awesome matches with Jon Moxley. So we have history, we have a storyline, and we also have some new type of angles and storylines that can happen. The Acclaimed, just on the raps alone, they're a great entertaining act. They have charisma, they have poise, they have presence. But how many people go on YouTube just to see Max Caster's raps? So I would put them on there. Once again, the tag team stuff, we might have a whole show for tag teams. Billy Gunn, a veteran that looks incredible, can still go and can teach all the younger talent and can work a hardcore style if he needs to. Top Flight, here we have an angle here, but we're talking about action. We're talking about basically, in my estimation, let's say for ECW, let's use this. ECW, you're talking about Rey Mysterio, Junto Guerrero. These guys have that. Cruiserweights in WCW on Nitro, they're a special attraction. Then on the opposite end, FTR, very basic, brawling, good old school style, complements this style, complements that style. Samoa Joe, very much a Ring of Honor presentation, a Ring of Honor moveset. He can work with Omega, he can work with Eddie, Darby, Moxley, Bill, anybody. Samoa Joe is definitely like more of a gritty, hardcore fighter He brings the fight aspect to Rampage. Christian Cage and the group he's with, lots of charisma, great promos, tons of heat. He can call himself the franchise on this show, repackage himself. He can have great matches with Joe, Omega, Kingston, anybody. Billy, he's worked a ton of times right there. Okay, so now we get into a little bit more of an international flavor. Okada, Will Ospreay, Shibata, Danielson. Then you have Jay Lethal. Once again, Jay Lethal, Joe, Christian Cage, he can work with anybody. It's all interchangeable. But these four guys here give such an international flavor, especially these three guys from New Japan. Bryan Danielson can work with anybody. And there's our 15, and you got Swerve as champion, where everybody is trying to become champion or earn title shots. Or this also right away, what we see with both of these, and with the world champion working all three shows, now wins and losses do matter. Your ranking matters. Your wins in the past, whatever. Now it can be based on what Tony tried to do, which is whoever wins the most matches is on a streak, has the best ranking, gets the title shot. Any questions? I feel like a cheat.
One name that I've noticed that you didn't include in is Chris Jericho.
Good segue. This is my other idea. AEW authority figures. Do you like the picture of Khan I picked? It was the best one. There was no, everything with him screaming at people or on the microphone, 9 nights. So and I couldn't screenshot the dancing. I didn't want any more trouble from him. So this is where the learning tree gimmick of Chris Jericho, his character, can go across to all three shows or be an authority figure on one show. Chris Jericho being the authority figure, being the GM, whatever you might call it. Here we are with him giving advice, doing whatever, being obnoxious to the talent, and then eventually, whoever needs to get over, needs to rub, will work a program with Chris. Now, Chris, just like Edge, just like Keith Lee, just like not just like those, or what we're talking about is more like Edge and other people in the age category, Jeff Jarrett. We only have a limited amount of time physically for Chris to be able to have the matches he wants to have. So this gives Chris a break from the physicality, from injuries, get his body back to where it feels good, and really use him as a special attraction. His character, his promos, his presence is what either gets him heat or people love him, not the matches themselves. Those are used sparingly. He's an authority figure. Nigel McGuinness is the babyface version of that authority figure. Not sure if all three of these are all three shows, or they have two of the shows and Khan has one, or they have Dynamite, Rampage. Tony Khan is basically going to be brought in for, say, the final vote or the final decision, or they consult Tony. Remember, I don't care what anybody says. Tony Khan loves being on TV. He loves it. So the boys try to figure out how can we still get him on TV and feed his ego. This is the way to do it without having Khan on every single thing. So that's how we use Chris. He's still a wrestler. And as a matter of fact, I might have him wrestle Nigel McGuinness if they have an argument about a decision. That doesn't have to be it, but that's one of the ideas off the top of my head.
Okay, then. So we had a good few dozen people there who are making the main roster and who the storylines and angles are going to revolve around, essentially, on Rampage and Dynamite in the Stevie Richards version of AEW going forward. But as you were talking, I wrote down a bunch of names of who didn't make the cut, essentially. A few of these are injured. A few of these are wrestlers of note that are just not there or not around, and some people are on every single week at the moment who you decide not to put on your roster. So I'm curious as to know why. So I'm going to give you some names. Adam Page, Adam Cole, Gun Club, Brian Cage, Brody King, Claudio Castagnoli, easy for me to say, Daniel Garcia, Jay White, Mark Briscoe, Miro, Rusev, Orange Cassidy, Pac, Powerhouse Hobbs, I think he's injured, Phoenix and Penta, Roderick Strong, who's on Collision, in fact, that we watch, Roosh, Sammy Guevara, who is still suspended, and Wardlow. So is Wardlow injured as well?
I couldn't tell you. I don't know.
Yeah.
This is the thing. They have so many people that they call off, and there's so many people I didn't know were still at the company.
Yeah. So these are people as well. I should also say that Brody, I nearly wrote Brody Lee. Brody Lee is permanently on the roster in memoriam. So it's actually 117 on the roster. So of all those names, why didn't you pick some of them? And of any of these names, could you cull a few of them as well that wouldn't make it into Stevie Richards AEW?
Well, I'm telling you, as a former talent, as somebody who loves the fact that Tony Khan pays the talent, keeps them under contract, takes care of them, especially like I said before, in this tough economy, I don't want anybody to ever get released. I will put an asterisk next to that because I think there's a good happy medium for people because what you just talked about is a lot of these people aren't even on the show. They disappeared. Most notably, Miro is the first person I look at that comes to mind. You're doing the talent a disservice by keeping them under contract and not allowing them to get better, to make more money, to get themselves over. In other words, what's worse? Sitting at home knowing that you're not going to do anything and you're probably going to end up getting your contract not released but not renewed. Now you're starting from scratch rather than going to New Japan, going to another promotion, going to Europe, going anywhere to still get better, get recognized, and also keep your name out there amongst the fans. That's the issue. So when we talk about releasing or getting rid of or doing, it's not necessarily, especially with the names on this list, that you suck, that you're not getting over. It's mostly this list and the people that aren't getting used right now. It's an indictment on Tony Khan and creative and AEW. Because without the office and the machine and somebody putting you on TV, you don't have the opportunity. And what I'm looking at here is every single person, including some of the younger guys like Gun Club, when they're given something, they're charismatic, they have energy, they can work. Of course, Billy Gunn's sons, they can work. And if they end up leaving AEW or getting released, it's not their fault. They're doing everything they can with everything they're handed or what little they're handed. I left Adam Page off, not by omission or not thing, because I saw the thing with him and the Young Bucks. So he can plug into that very easily. But Adam Page is also over as a singles wrestler. But they cooled him down. They forgot about him. So what does that mean? That's not Adam Page's fault. That's their fault. Adam Cole comes in with a bunch of fanfare. And before this, where you can get into the booking, but Adam Cole comes in as a surprise. People do Adam Cole, baby, all that stuff. Then he turns heel 5 seconds later. Then it's glossed over when Danielson comes out. So you did that guy a disservice. Second one of his debut. He could have been a babyface for 6 months and then turned. We're also looking at Brian Cage on this list. Brian is a generational talent, and just from looks, walking through an airport, Brian Cage stands out. That's enough for Vince McMahon. And I'm shocked Brian Cage is not in WWE right now. As a matter of fact, I would dare say you're doing Brian Cage a favor. This is one of the guys you would do a favor if you let him go or you basically said we're not renewing your contract. This guy can go somewhere else and get over. Unfortunately, too, Brian Cage, one of the nicest guys I met in the short time I've been around him. Very nice guy. Almost too nice. One reason I say that is he put Tessa Blanchard over clean in TNA. Nothing wrong with that because the office wanted it, but the perception of him drastically changed after that. And I believe his stock went down in a lot of people's eyes. I don't know how much Tony Khan is paying him, but I don't know if he fully recovered from that as far as perception. Brody King, Ring of Honor. Claudio Castagnoli, Ring of Honor. Daniel Garcia, Ring of Honor. Jay White, Not so sure. Maybe Ring of Honor or even maybe Collision for him. Like I said, the rosters I came up with were a base roster. That means you could have another 5 to 10 people on each show that rotate. Mark Briscoe, Ring of Honor. Miro, I put him in the Brian Cage category. You're not doing him any favors. Miro should go back to WWE. CJ Perry, her contract ran out too, or she got released, right?
She was released in April, yeah, very quietly.
Those two should get back together and be Lana and Rusev.
Well, they've just divorced.
But they were doing business together, though, right?
Yeah, but I don't know how keen they might be to get back together, at least on screen.
I wasn't aware of that. That to me, I'm just thinking booking and,
Yeah.
and money and all that stuff. Orange Cassidy, the only reason I left him off the list is I'm not quite sure how we can reinvent him. Now, he's one of Tony's best friends. So politically, we have to find a spot for him. Let's be honest. We're sitting in the booking meeting. Kevin Sullivan has famously said to me more times, he's like, it's not just about booking this guy versus this guy. We have to see, all right, have these guys ever gotten into a fight? Did they not get along? Did one steal the other's girl? Are they willing to work with each other, or is it just not even worth the effort? These are important things. So we're fantasy booking. We're not booking. He's booking real stuff. But I want to say that we have to put Orange Cassidy on the show so Tony Khan doesn't get pissed at us politically. But I really would like, I think the Orange Cassidy babyface quiet thumbs up gimmick needs to evolve, needs to change. Orange Cassidy as a heel could draw. He has to talk. I don't know what kind of promos he can cut. All right, Pac had a great guy, great character, great gimmick, very dark. It was called the Bastard.
Mm-hmm. He's an interesting one though, because
what happened?
I think
what happened?
Somewhere between having to fly him in, there was lockdowns that was causing issues earlier on in his AEW career. Then he was injured, and I think he still lives my way or not too far from it. He lives in England, I think. So he is more of an administrative challenge than most. I suspect he's living around here like Will Ospreay still lives in England, as well as flying in every single week. But with they've got more plans for Will Ospreay, of course.
Well, maybe Tony can do a thing like Paul Heyman used to do, and I was Missy Hyatt. Someone else was Melissa Hyatt. Someone was Paul E. Heyman. Somebody was Paul F. Heyman. We had tickets where before you had to show an ID for the flight so you could use his points. All right. Pac's proven he's a character. And that's another one. If he went back with that evil bastard gimmick in WWE, that would get over. That would really get over. Powerhouse Hobbs. This is a name I would put on Dynamite. Land of the Giants.
Mm-hmm.
The guy can work. He needs experience. I would probably also, maybe for about a month or two, here's where the Collision show on Saturday mornings is your farm league, is your minors to get a new gimmick going and experiment and do different things. That would be where I would put him, as well as maybe Orange Cassidy. Once again, Orange Cassidy could be a great kids act. He could be the franchise on that Collision show Saturday mornings. All right. Phoenix and Penta. I think now we have our WCW Nitro Cruiserweights. Now we're building up action. This is where Rampage could be something special. We open up Rampage at 10 p.m. with a lucha match, with a cruiserweight match. Get them warmed up. Nice 6 to 8 minute match. And that's another thing. Times on these matches should be dramatically shorter, where the pay-per-view matches are longer. That's what I believe.
We've not talked about something here that I've just realized. Dynamite's 2 hours and Rampage is 1 hour. Are we assuming in this that those times are the same, or are we assuming that they both got the same?
Some of the times are the same.
Okay.
Your Rampage show is your Attitude Era Crash TV. The hour goes by. It could be your highest rated show based on the time investment alone of the audience. But you have to change the identity to match Friday night, 10 p.m. Turn it on in the bar. Right before you go out, you watch it to get yourself like pumped up and everything. It's got to be dopamine hits for an hour. Roderick Strong. this would be a Ring of Honor, or he's in a group. See, this is the other thing. This is what makes it confusing. We're too far into everybody being in a group. Way too many groups.
Well, the thing is, I mean, he was with Adam Cole, Undisputed Kingdom, but I mean, is that even a group at the moment? Let's just assume he's not in a group.
Roddy can go. Roddy's an athlete. If he wants to be a character, I'd go back to this 2 hours Saturday morning. Roddy, do you want to be a character? What have you always wanted to be? What did you always imagine yourself as a pro wrestler? Collision. And to me, it's not a punishment. It's a way to keep you fresh. It's a way to keep you motivated. It's a way to have you have some sort of creative control. Go there. Hey, if you want to do some hardcore stuff, if you're a big fan of ECW, let's put you on Rampage, see what happens. You know what I mean? Not dangerous. I mean, it's dangerous enough from what I watch, but you have the stunts, you have the blood, some of the other stuff, the cursing. That way, WBD can say, okay, Saturday mornings, we're going to have characters, we're going to appeal to the families, no cursing, PG. Dynamite's a little bit of a mix. Rampage, we're going basically almost rated R.
We have four more people. I added one after I mentioned Wheeler Yuta as well. So we've got Rush, Sammy Guevara, Wardlow, and Wheeler Yuta.
Rush would be ROH if you're going to be on anything. And this makes Honor Club maybe worth the subscription to some people. You have to identify your demographics of who are our subscribers. I would do a focus group, a survey. If those 10,000 people love people that were in Ring of Honor before, I put Shane Taylor in there too, but I would team Shane up with Keith Lee to protect Keith Lee's body, where he only has to do half the work. And now we have giants. So they used to team up in ROH together. All right, Sammy Guevara. Here's where I would ask Khan about everybody, but specifically somebody like Sammy Guevara or even Ricky Starks is another one we forgot.
Mm-hmm.
Are they going to WWE? Ricky Starks, the minute his contract's up, I have no doubt Cody's going to get him in an NXT.
Ricky Starks is just one of those people. He was with Big Bill and now he's not, and he's just disappeared. He's not injured. He's just not on TV anymore.
Let's stop right there, by the way. You just said, okay, Roderick Strong's with Adam Cole. They had a history. That's fine. You just said that Ricky Starks is with Big Bill. Why? We have to ask these, like, what brings characters together? What causes characters to break up? What causes characters to want to fight? We don't have the why or the why not. This is what, well, got to get everybody on TV. That's not a reason to book people on TV. Wardlow is, you took a guy that was literally the next Goldberg and you ruined him. Wardlow would have to be on Collision. He'd have to be a mix between Collision and ROH to reinvent himself. Once you see a character and you see the staleness come, you see the character on a downward trajectory, let's just talk about anybody, including myself. Right to Censor was over. So you're going to put people over after Right to Censor. You're just going to keep putting people over until we kind of destroy the character. Then you need to go away. Then when you come back, you're just kind of in there doing whatever, opening match, this, that, the other thing, putting people over. When we know that, like, okay, you're back, you're in shape, you haven't lost a beat, let's give you a little bit more. WWE does that for right or wrong reasons. They do it the best way as far as if you're hot, you're on TV. If you start to cool down, we got to take you off and maybe bring you back as something else. The Wardlow thing is probably you wasted, not, Brian Cage is one thing because he never really was presented the way that Wardlow was. But Wardlow, way up here, now Wardlow, I didn't even remember who was on the roster. That's not Wardlow's fault. That's Tony Khan's fault.
On that we should wrap up the roster thing. So I think we've basically said Wardlow needs rehab. Miro should really go along with Brian Cage. It's not to fire them for the wrong reasons. It's the reason that they need to go somewhere fresh to rehab.
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt. Sorry about that. Here's where Tony Khan, you speak to your personality, which I heard you're an awesome guy. You're a great guy. You care about the talent. You facilitate their next stop. In other words, keep them under contract. You can unofficially release them, but get them 6 months in New Japan. Get them a deal on another indie. Get them deals on, say, over in Europe. There's tons of promotions, right? They can work 4 or 5 days a week. So I would say that is where, Tony Khan can save face with the talent and not be a heel. I have you set up with your next job. And there you go. Johnny Ace has done, even Johnny Ace has done that, by the way, as much as vilify him. Johnny Ace got a couple talents booked in Japan at one point when he had a stroke over there. Yeah, there was a couple people that said that Johnny Ace called, Japan, and I went over there and I worked for Japan. I have to see for accuracy who the talents were, but I do recall specifically 2 talents that he had called. Now, he can call and you can have a ton of heat. I don't know how people feel about him over there, but the promoter, the booker, talent relations people, they all know somebody that they can put a good word in for the talent to give them a launching pad. Now, are you going to get paid a ton of money? No, but you have to go away. You have to repay your dues, reinvent yourself, and then when you come back, demand even more money, probably. That's the way it hopefully will work.